Good morning, Mr. Chair and members. Erin Niemela representing Replanet, which is the largest CZ convenience zone recycling operator in the state. CZ locations serve about 70% of consumers who choose to get their nickel back. We support the department's proposal, and not because it's without pain. It's a $7 million reduction to handling fees. I think the analysis points out that's a 37% reduction to what the average location receives. And you know, there's also a zeroing out of admin fees, which for Replanet alone would result in a more than $5 million hit. So it is a painful proposal, to be sure, but we also believe the reason we support it is because it's a responsible proposal, because the alternative is to go into proportional reduction, and that could damage recycling rates in the state and damage all of the industries that participate in this program. Replanet provides more than 1,200 jobs in the state. We would ask that 2 adjustments be made to the proposal going forward. One is right now the analysis goes into this. There's a flat fee being proposed per location, per CZ location for handling fees, and we would suggest that that will result in significant reductions to 70% of locations. We would instead propose a tiered handling fee rate so that those operations that have higher volume receive less per container because they have greater ability to absorb the cost, more economies of scale. My client is one of those. But we believe it's a more gradual approach, and it also doesn't de-incentivize work and recycling at those locations, where a flat fee doesn't incentivize recycling at all. The second thing would be on the admin fee. We would only ask, because this is its own line item, and to change this would be to change the entire proposal, and we understand that. We would just ask that as the fund improves, which hopefully it does, a loading order be implemented to restore some of these reductions, and that loading order start with reduction of the admin fee. And the reason for that is CZ recyclers and our other recycling counterparts pay the nickel back to the consumer long before they ever receive reimbursement from the department. That's not the department's fault. That's just how the program works. So 60 to 100 days is the float. Without any sort of admin fee, there's a huge cost to these centers, which I think the analysis points out have an average profit rate of about 5%. So that's why we ask for that. We'd like to see 2 adjustments, but we do support what the department is trying to accomplish here. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Louis Brown on behalf of the California Grocers Association. We too have concerns with the governor's proposal. Grocery stores are the convenience zones. The way the law was set up, most of the convenience zones in the state of California are anchored by a supermarket. So we have serious concerns with the handling fee proposal. We believe that while in the short run it may create some opportunities for business to come into unserved zones, we do not believe that those businesses will be there for the long term and that it will actually create sustained convenience zone recyclers. When those zones go unserved, the law says the responsibility falls back on the grocer to actually pay a penalty, per day penalty, or take bottles and cans back into their stores. While that may have sounded like a good idea 20-some years ago, the grocery stores have evolved over that time, and today taking back recyclables in our store is not a good idea. And so we have serious concerns that the proposal as presented will actually increase the number of unserved zones in the state of California, increasing the penalties we face. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Mark Fenstermaker here on behalf of the Los Angeles Conservation Corps. I want to associate our organization with the comments made by Ms. Brokaw and Mr. Singh in supporting this proposal, and thank Director Mortensen and the department for their hard work on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman and members, Kelly Jensen representing Anheuser-Busch. We are opposed to the proposal. I will look forward to continuing to work with the director, who we have the utmost respect for, and the committee to forge a solution that deals with the complexity of all the witnesses that have testified. It is a complex program, but we look forward to continuing discussions to make sure that we can keep this program viable and pay for all the good things that it does, and maybe look at some reductions that aren't appropriate in this program. But again, we look forward to spending significant amount of time with Director Mortensen.
Good morning, Chair members. Amy Mago on behalf of the California Chamber of Commerce in opposition to the proposal. We don't feel that there's an urgency at this point to move forward with this specific proposal, and rather there should be some time taken to develop a true reform package that will keep the program sustainable and successful. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, members, Dawn Kepke with McHugh Kepke & Associates on behalf of Strategic Materials, Inc., one of the largest glass processors in the state and nation. We do echo the concerns relative to the administrative fee. That said, we do actually support a very specific component of the proposal relative to quality incentive payments. Given the changes in the law relative to commingled rates being eliminated at recycling centers and CZ operations, we've seen a very significant influx of material from curbside, which is resulting in higher need and costs associated with cleaning and sorting glass, which is very costly for one, but certainly very challenging for machines, because as was previously mentioned, that is a very difficult material to clean because it is so sharp and just complex. So we do support the maintenance of the quality incentive payments in full and appreciate the department's willingness to do so. And we look forward to continuing to work with the department and with the legislature going forward. Thank you.
Wow. Well, that certainly represents a diversity of opinions, and I understand and respect the challenge you're under. Were there any questions? I have a couple if no one else does, and I'd like to try and we're holding this open, so I know we'll have an opportunity to spend a little bit more time, and Mr. Gordon, you may want to chime in and help answer the questions because you've been involved in this issue for a long time. But comments were made regarding the a program that was vetoed by Governor Schwarzenegger, and also Mr. Gordon, your bill from last year, was it? From last year, and I'm wondering if you could kind of compare and contrast those against what your proposal is today.
I think one of both those proposals had a lot of good components to them. Some of them we've actually adopted through the first reform proposals. It came to some of our enforcement issues and fraud work. I think what those were looking at also was what Mr. Murray was saying about kind of closing the loopholes in the program, about the way the program is set up, where it's by beverage and not necessarily by container. And there's some beverages such as that are sold in containers like aseptics or gable tops that aren't in the program. There's some juices that are, depending on what size and concentration of juice, aren't in the program. So it was an attempt to kind of address some of the other containers that have come on the market since last time we added containers to the program. So again, those, we can throw lots of containers. I will take on all new containers, but I think we still have to be careful with the issue of the money in, money out. And while I'd accept a challenge of any new container legislature wants to throw our way, is that the processing fee, that would help pay for the cost of recycling, those things we still have to keep in the forefront of our mind, because there's still things that we're going to have to work with. So we kind of focused on kind of keeping what we got, and because we do have a lot of issues with some of especially glass is one thing that we've heard loud and clear that we have issues with, and it's issues not just for the bottle bill program, but it's glass recycling overall that we need to work with them to see if we can get them going.
So on that issue of glass recycling, I heard I think a couple of people talk about not just the challenge of recycling glass, but the fact that they are actively recycling glass for which a CRV isn't paid. I'm sorry that I'm either not recalling conversations with people that I've had in the past or just don't know. And this is probably a lengthier discussion, but can you describe the history of that circumstance, and has there been a move to broaden the scope of glass that does pay the CRV, which would clearly, at least from an economic perspective, were it paid, help pay for some of the program here.
Again, it's kind of the beverages that drive the program, not the containers. So right now, the way the law is structured, it's beer is probably the biggest one that's sold in glass for the program. Some of the obvious and kind of notable ones that are excluded are wine and spirits. Again, keeping in the line with beverages containers. You're right, all kinds of glass are also, these guys do a great job of handling it. Again,
somebody
it's
mentioned mayonnaise jars.
Yeah, mayonnaise jars and spaghetti sauce jars and all kinds of stuff. So it's great. Glass is a challenge, but it's also one of the oldest containers we've been working with for hundreds of years. So it's been around for a while. It does have a lot of benefits, and using recycled cullet has lots of benefits for reducing pollution and GHGs. So I definitely need to have those plants here. I need to have them working for me. I need to have them processed more. But unfortunately, what we're working with them is that not just on beverage containers, is the curbside system that we have. It definitely collects a lot of quantity, but I think, as you heard, sometimes that really affects the quality. And so what we're trying to do now is we're encouraging people to throw everything into a can, and with some materials like glass, what we end up doing is we get breakage and more breakage and more breakage, and then we have to go through and sort all those little pieces back out again by color and type. And that's added, like I said, we got quantity, we're losing quality. So one of the things I want to do is see if we can do to get that quality back up.
Okay, well, I don't want to belabor the point unless Mr. Gordon wants to add anything. I don't want to belabor the point more today, but those of you who are advocates on this issue out there know how to track me down. It'd be interesting to me personally to educate myself and get some feedback on that particular issue. So, and of course, Ms. Mortensen, you're more than welcome to help in that regard too. I'm not sure, did we want to hear from LAO? We did. It was a long time ago. All right, well, I think that concludes issue 1, which we're going to hold open, and why don't you proceed with issues 2 and 3, please.
You can hang out if you want. The next proposal, again, is, giving money away sometimes can be a real, makes me wonder sometimes. But our next proposal, though, is we're very excited about, and it has to do with using cap and trade funds to expand recycling in the state of California. So what we're looking to do is the governor's budget includes $30 million for each for the next 2 years to establish new recycling infrastructure for organics and traditional recycling materials, including glass, plastic, and fiber, and to just do that through grants and loans. And if you guys notice in the draft scoping plan update with ARB is we have a whole section in that update that is dedicated to the waste sector. So, and we're also included in the investment fund. So this proposal supports those efforts. And what we're looking for in the state of California is to expand those recycling markets, and especially for organics, which in the landfill decompose and emit methane. As you heard, that methane's a pretty potent greenhouse gas. So we're trying, our main focus will be to get organics out of landfills and develop markets for those, as well as the traditional recycling markets. As you know, we do a lot of collection here in the state, but on the back end, as you heard, is we do a lot of we have some production here in California, but I would love to see a lot more. We probably export 80 to 90% of our plastic and fiber to other countries, and I'd be very happy to be able to keep that here and develop the jobs and the economic drivers that go with that. So that's in a nutshell, and I can take a quick shot at answering the questions that were in the agenda as well.
Please do.
Of course, metrics and counting are important to everybody on this, and we are looking at kind of doing this in 2 ways. we've been working with the Air Resources Board for many years on establishing emission reduction factors for recycling and for greenhouse gas emissions from composting. So we have those developed, so we'll be using those as metrics. We also have the landfill emission tool that we worked with ARB on, so we have that as a method, and also to the low carbon fuel standard. We have one for that as well. And the other thing we're doing is we'll be asking our applicants to share with us how they would go about calculating their proposed GHG reductions as well, so we can see if there's any other new ideas. So we're kind of looking at it both as we have a backup of our own stuff that we worked with ARB on, and to see what our applicants may have. So near term, long term, we are already working on this. We actually have proposed a grant program and loan program, and I approved the scoring criteria and the program plans at our meeting last month in down in Riverside. So we are ready to go with those. We'll do a notice of funds available probably this month and get those applications out on the street. And so we're looking to do some pretty quick turnaround on this. So, we've got hopefully quick turnaround, and also we're looking at projects that are going to be shovel ready and ready to go. So we're pretty confident we're going to get near term, long term. The long term side is we want to make sure that people that are coming to us looking for money have good business plans in place and aren't using these types of funds as something that's to keep their doors open, but it's a Kickstarter to get them going, and they have a strong business plan, so they'll be able to continue without state support. So I mentioned a little bit, you guys asked about the criteria about how to spend the allocation. As we developed a scoring criteria that will rate lots of things, but shovel ready, as well as one of the most important things that we're looking at is the disadvantaged communities. Is we want to make sure these proposals will be adding benefit to the communities they're going in. We're a little bit backwards in some of the other state agencies, as I actually need a lot of facilities, and some of those facilities are going to go into areas that may be disadvantaged. But what we're looking for there are the benefits that project is going to give, and not just in jobs and local economy, but a good example that we've seen people talk about is, especially for organics recycling and anaerobic digestion, is using those processes to develop fuel for garbage trucks and transportation trucks that will replace diesel. They use compression natural gas made from those. So those are the types of things that we're looking for. So like I said, we're getting money, hopefully planned with, if everything goes as planned, and depending on what happens with the budget, we'll be ready to roll. Hopefully have money in people's hands by late fall, early winter. And we do have, like on the disadvantaged communities, you asked about how we're going to calculate the investments. We are asking our applicants to tell us their interpretation of that, about how they're going to fit in and help with that. And we're looking at being able to easily meet the requirements of SB 535, and we're looking between 10 to 25% per project, and hopefully in total we'll be able to hit those goals and exceed them.
Thank you. I don't believe we have LAO feedback on this issue. Is that right?
No, we don't have concerns with this proposal besides our general concerns. We do acknowledge that CalRecycle did provide an estimate for 2014-15 emissions reductions, which we appreciate. We just note that because so many departments did not provide that, it's still very challenging for the legislature to compare their proposal against other ones.
Indeed. Thank you. Why don't you proceed with issue 3?
Okay. Issue 3 is the rubberized asphalt concrete marketing development act. This is in response to Assembly Bill 513 by Assemblymember Frazier last year that gave us more expenditure authority for rubberized asphalt concrete. This is and pavement. This is a a great use of reclaimed and waste tires that comes with benefits that include asphalt that lasts a lot longer, is a lot more flexible, and is safer and better stopping distances. So this proposal would give us the authority to implement that.
Thank you. Mr. Gordon.
I'd move to approve as budgeted.
Thank you. And that would be only issue 3, issue
Correct, just issue
2 as a holdover.
Just issue 3.
We have a motion and a second. Oh, public comment. Yes, thank you. On issues 2 and 3.
Mr. Chairman, members, Mark Murray with Californians Against Waste. On issue 2, as has been noted, CalRecycle has been authorized $30 million for greenhouse gas. We're generally in support of that. With regard to the specifics, there is a department proposal that $5 million of this be used to create a new grant program for manufacturing. Given our previous discussion and the very serious consequences we are facing with regard to glass recycling in this state, we think it would be appropriate, rather than creating a new program, to basically put in place immediately a program to support California glass manufacturing. We think that focusing those funds for the next 2 years specifically on glass manufacturing in the state would be the most immediate program that we could implement and get us our biggest bang for our buck. We are at a record high levels of the amount of glass that's being collected for recycling in the state of California, but we're actually at record low levels for the percentage of that glass that's being collected for recycling that's actually going back into making glass containers. Only 75% of the glass that we're collecting for recycling in the state of California is actually going back to California glass manufacturers. The percentage of recycled content has peaked in 2009 and has now fallen off. So we think focusing those monies, and I would make a case for an amount equal to $10 million per year, focused on supporting California glass manufacturing with a market development payment program identical to the existing successful plastic market development program would be the way to go. That could be implemented immediately and create an incentive for California glass manufacturers to use increased amounts of recycled content and thereby lowering their greenhouse gas emissions. Thanks.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair and members, Don Gilbert representing the Bay Area Biosolids to Energy Coalition on issue 2. The Bay Area Biosolids to Energy Coalition is a JPA of 19 Bay Area wastewater agencies looking to convert biosolids to clean energy. And we would like to see the $30 million fund augmented by at least $12 million and make grants available out of that augmentation to local sanitation agencies for that purpose to convert biosolids to clean energy. Everyone in this room, contribute to this particular feedstock on a fairly regular basis, and right now it is land applied. As you know from the Salas bill, land application is becoming problematic. There's a stigma associated with it, justified or not, and so that option is going away. We need to find another option. Last fact, there is more than one nexus to the GHG cap and trade funds. One is that just these 19 agencies in the Bay Area alone, to land apply, they have to truck the biosolids. It's 1 million miles of trucking a year, and we need to get those trucks off the road. Mr. Frazier sent the subcommittee a letter on March 21st, and I'm just echoing his proposal. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chairman and members, Kelly Jensen representing Recology. Recology is the largest composter in the state and is very supportive of issue 2 as the legislature considers commercial organics programs and also diversion of organics out of landfills for average daily cover. This is a very important use of money. Recology currently composts food waste from San Francisco, takes it to a facility, and is looking to convert that into fuels to have a closed loop system for their transportation of their trucks. So obviously other companies are looking at that as well. But these type of dollars are very important to move us in that right direction. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Dawn Kepke with McHugh Kepke & Associates, again on behalf of Strategic Materials. Relative to item number 2, we do conceptually support the proposal of the department. We just echo the comments made earlier relative to the benefits of using recycled glass cullet as it relates to lowering GHG emissions. We think that is a smart way to go. We also support the comments made by Mark Murray with Californians Against Waste around focusing more resources to glass recycling, processing, and manufacturing. Thank you.
Thank you. Wait.
So Mike Robeson for the Glass Packaging Institute, and obviously all the nice things being said about glass are, we agree with all of that. Just so you know, the glass container industry, the glass manufacturers are a covered entity in cap and trade, and so as far as cap and trade dollars go, you know, there is an absolute nexus with the use of those revenues to support this manufacturing enterprise, this manufacturing industry, and over the years, you know, the hundreds of millions of dollars this industry's paid in processing fees have had the effect of reducing greenhouse gas emissions, and so to the fact that cap and trade came along years later after hundreds of millions of dollars of being spent on processing fees, the cap and trade program comes along. We're going to be paying into that program as well. So we're kind of paying twice for the same effort to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. And so anything that can be done in this area, you know, if there's ways to combine this item with the previous item and to have a discussion about processing fees and greenhouse gas emissions and cap and trade revenues, we're for all of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your presentation. We're going to take our vote now on issue number 3.
I
think we had a motion in a second. Yeah. Gordon and Patterson.
Okay. Bloom.
Aye.
Campos. Aye. Gordon. Aye. Logue. Patterson.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We are now going to go right into and hopefully wrap up in about 5 minutes the Department of Environmental Health Hazard Assessment, which is also the Capitol's favorite acronym, I think. Or certainly happiest acronym. Got it. Right. Office of. I'm being corrected. Screwed up the acronym. No. Welcome.
Good morning. I'm George Alexeyev, Director of the Office of Environmental Health Hazard Assessment. With me is Susan Villa, one of our Deputy Directors. And our office does scientific evaluation of the risk of hazardous substances to assist the other boards and departments, the Department of Public Health, and also Department of Food and Agriculture when evaluating chemicals in the air, water, or pesticides, or hazardous wastes, or soil, or things like that. In addition, we also assist the agency in some overarching projects. And one of the ones that we have been working on for the last several years is called Cal EnviroScreen. And that project was to address primarily environmental justice issues that the agency was facing and to give them some method of prioritizing communities in terms of providing assistance, improving their enforcement activities, and other things that they might want to do for those communities. So I thought I would just mention that. It's also been used by the Secretary to assist him in identifying disadvantaged communities for the purposes of SB 535, which was discussed earlier. Today, we're requesting a budget change proposal for $785,000 for 4 limited-term positions for funds from our Prop 65 penalty fund to both develop a website and a regulation that would improve the warning information that's generally provided to consumers regarding chemical exposures that are listed under Prop 65. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Members of the public?
Thank you. Anthony Sampson on behalf of the California Chamber of Commerce. Here in opposition to this allocation. This would allocate $785,000 for the Proposition 65 reform effort, as you just heard, including the creation of a website. Importantly, this proposal just came out last month as part of a draft pre-regulatory proposal. So the public actually hasn't even had the opportunity to provide formal comments on this website. In fact, the public workshop isn't until next Monday, April 14th, and comments aren't due to be submitted until mid-May. So as we are fundamentally opposed to allocating financial resources for a website on which we haven't even had the opportunity to comment. Now, I also want to be clear that the Chamber and other organizations certainly support attempts to reform Proposition 65, but in doing so, they must embody two fundamental principles. One, providing more meaningful information to the consumer, and also two, reducing frivolous litigation opportunities that currently exist in the regulations. Based on our preliminary review of the pre-regulatory draft proposal, unfortunately, we don't believe that the framework embodies either principle. So for this reason, we simply respectfully request at a minimum that this be held off and let the regulatory process take its course to even determine whether the final rulemaking process will even include a website in the first place. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm Kevin Messner. I'm with Political Logic. I represent the Association of Home Appliance Manufacturers. We oppose this website funding as well. The appliance industry, as many of you know, have a large amount of history and experience with labels. And sometimes people feel when they go in to buy a new refrigerator, it's almost like looking at a NASCAR car, which you have some of these stickers on the car, but you don't know which one's doing what or who the sponsor is. Appliances have energy guide labels, Energy Star, safety labels. You're looking at features. When the consumer goes in, they get easily confused with information overload. And I think that's what we're seeing here with just another label. And doubling down on that, I think we all agree that this Prop 65 can be improved. So let's try to improve it before we now pile on with additional information where the consumer gets lost in a just haze of information. And for these reasons, we think we should hold off on this website and let's rethink the program so that a label can be effective if it's not lost in just a mass of other information. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
We're going to take a pause. Members, if it's all right with you, if there's no objection, I think we'll hold this item open. But I'd like to pause the public hearing so that, because I know Mr. Gordon needs to leave, so that he can add on to the issues that he missed.
Issue number 2.
Issue number 2. You can call them.
Under the Department of Resource Recycling and Recovery, issue number 2, initial transition for support of Doris. Gordon?
Aye.
Campos? Aye. That item's. And Bloom?
Aye.
Sorry. That's 3-0. That item's out. Actually, I don't think.
I made the motion. It was not seconded. So let me make the motion again.
I'll second the motion. It was made previously.
Thank you.
Bloom?
Aye.
Campos?
Aye.
Gordon?
Aye.
Logue? Patterson? So that's 3-0.
I'd move the staff recommendation for issue number 6 under item 3970.
Second.
Pardon? You're a no. On issue number 2? You're a no. Patterson's a no. So that's 3-1 on issue number 2.
Mr. Chair, I was just informed I have to be in another committee, so can we lift the call on all of the items so that I can vote on it as well?
Yes, we'll do
Thank
them all
you.
right now.
So sorry, for issue number 6, it's been motioned and seconded. Bloom.
Aye.
Campos.
Aye.
Gordon. Logue. Patterson. Patterson, no. That's 3-1. Items out.
All right. Those were all the items that we needed votes on, so thank you very much. And sorry for the interruption. Please proceed.
Not a problem. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, Don Kepke with McHugh Kepke and Associates. On behalf of the California Manufacturers and Technology Association, echoing the concerns related to the funding of this website at this time, we agree that we should have additional time to consider the pre-regulatory draft and movement of that issue and its relation to the website development, and appreciate the committee's consideration of holding the item open. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Kara Bush with the California Restaurant Association. We'd like to align ourselves with the comments previously stated by the Chamber and ask that the measure be put on hold. Thank you.
Mr. Chair and members, Lauren De Valencia representing the American Coatings Association and the California Paint Council. Align ourselves with the comments of others and appreciate the item remain open. Thank you.
Nicole Quinones on behalf of the Consumer Specialty Products Association. We also support holding the item open today. Thank you.
Margot Parks on behalf of the Family Winemakers of California. Also support this item being held open, and thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Any questions? You're welcome. So we'll hold this item open, and I would invite those of you who have spoken on this issue and the office certainly to communicate with me and other members of the committee. I'm, I guess, frankly, not certain, and we don't have to have a debate about it now, but I'm not certain why we would. Let me start again. I'm not sure how we treat most websites, and there must be hundreds of them that are that the state is involved in. I'm not sure why we would treat this website differently from others, and I'd be happy to hear from folks why that would be the case, why this one is somehow different in any regard. Sure.
And again, notwithstanding the narrowness with respect to the website, in the analysis here, it says, additionally, the proposed improvements will purportedly provide affected businesses a more reasonable level of certainty that they will not be sued for inadequate warnings. This is really important for me and for the people that I represent and for the folks back home that talk to me over and over again. And that they're being frivolously litigated and they're minor kinds of things, and yet they open the door. And so when I see including warnings on cash registers, or you have 800 specific chemicals and all of that, how in the world you're going to reform all of this in a way that gives full notification and improves it in the way that those who have stepped up here in support to improve. But how specifically are those improvements going to reduce or eliminate this frivolous lawsuit exposure? It has to be included in this, and I would be looking for that, and appreciate the chair's willingness to hold over so we can have some of those kinds of discussions with respect to the promulgated regulations you're proposing.
Sure.
Thank you.
Certainly.
Great. Thank you for your presentation and for being here today. And that brings our meeting to a conclusion. Thank you all for your participation. We are adjourned.